We're live. That's it. That's what it's like. Click the button and we're live. Well, folks, welcome to another episode of Gears of Trust. I'm your host, Maynard TV, and today on the show, I've got some really interesting guests and really interesting co-hosts. Sam Whit's going to be my co-host for the day. Lauren Whit, his wife, is actually going to be the voice of DeepSeek AI technology, and I do have Chat GPT that's going to be in studio as well. Because the two AI guests on the show today don't have physical beings, I can't create a screen within the studio for them. Once again, I have to remind everybody, guess what's up for grabs? Woohoo! On the market today, Alberta Buttercups on Amazon, right? Pick it up. Great way to solve team problems. If you don't know how your team functions, you can learn from that book. Sam, maybe one day we'll do a review on that book, my friend.
Sure.
TikTok. Topic today that we're going to be dealing with is Alberta, the 51st state. My last TikTok post I made's got over 15,700 views now. And tons and tons and tons of comments. I give up on replying to the comments. I just leave people have a battle royal on that TikTok, which is kind of cool. So we're going to go right back to that subject today. Sam, can I ask you to introduce yourself, and then I'll get Lauren to introduce themselves, and then we'll get Chat to introduce themselves.
I'm Sam. I'm just along for the ride.
Sam's along for the ride, eh? Diddly. Okay, Lauren, you are?
Hi, I'm Lauren. Here is the typer for DeepSeek and relaying the information.
Deadly. And Chat GPT, can you introduce yourself to the followers of the podcast?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Chat GPT, your friendly AI assistant, here to help Maynard, Sam, and Lauren on today's episode. Excited to be part of the conversation.
Excellent. All right. So I guess that leading into that, I'll give everybody a little heads up of what the conversation is going to be about today. So we're talking about Alberta joining the United States as 51st state, and this is a hot topic. I'm in Alberta. Sam and Lauren are in BC. What's called is, so the background of it being is the political situation in Canada right now, the turmoil in which it's in, and it's driven a lot of people to revive a thing called Wexit or Western separation. Alberta being the 51st state, not got drug into the conversation by Donald Trump of the states, right? So I'm going to open the conversation, and I'm going to throw the first question at Chat. And Lauren, I think you're a conversation guy. You can throw that in the DeepSeek at the same time. Once Chat answers, we'll hold Chat back and then see what DeepSeek has to say about things.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Let's do this. All right. Hit me with it.
Okay. Chat. Okay. So tell me the benefits of U.S. statehood in relation to economic growth, military infrastructure, investment into assuming Alberta is the 51st state.
All right. If Alberta became the 51st state, it could benefit from increased federal funding for infrastructure, expanded military presence, and potential economic growth through trade agreements. It might also attract more investment and business opportunities.
What's DeepSeek think about that, Laura?
DeepSeek might point out potential downsides, like concerns over losing certain healthcare benefits or navigating a new political landscape. They might also consider the impact on Canadian identity and regional relationships.
Chat, I'm going to have Lauren speak on behalf of DeepSeek because she's inputting the same question that I just asked you. So DeepSeek's going to have a shot at it on its own there.
Got it. I'll wait for Lauren's take from DeepSeek.
This is weird.
It's a fun setup, though.
Yeah.
Deep thinking. So you want the benefit of Alberta joining 51st state?
Yep. I'll get you to talk a little lower there, Lauren, because you're breaking up.
So it comes up some possible advantages. That's the economic.
Oh, you're breaking up real bad. Lauren, you're breaking up real bad. Move away from it. And can you give me a sound check?
Is that a little bit better?
That's a little better, yep. Can you read from that distance?
Yeah.
Okay, deadly. Let's go for it again.
So the integration manage with acquisition market, create opportunities, potential investors in this company. There's
Wow. That's going real bad. It's breaking up real bad. Sam, what do you sound like on camera, buddy?
Economic integration would benefit economic integration.
Same
Is
thing. We got
that-
yeah, that's breaking up really bad. That's breaking up really bad. Hey, we got a microphone? Another trick here.
Is this any better?
That's excellent. That's
Is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. You know what it is? It's you have an echo feature that you have there, right? And that's why it's picking up the echo.
Can we still hear chat?
Let's find out. Hey, chat, can we do a sound check right quick, please?
Sure thing. Just let me know what you need.
Yep.
Okay, so they can hear you. That's great. Okay, stand by. We're going to get DeepSeek's reply here. All right, Lauren?
Perfect. I'll be right here.
Excellent. Let's give her.
Okay, so DeepSeek's reply to the advantages of joining the US is economic integration influences trade opportunities, potential investments in US companies. It's got quite a list, actually. Development potential, political influence, infrastructure investment, economic stability, defense and security, access to US programs and innovation and technology. It goes into a little bit more detail on all those things, but it's a lot of information there.
I would say when we ask DeepSeek there, can we just kind of like simplify the question and have a positive or negative response or perspective on it? You know what I mean? So when you word your question to DeepSeek, kind of like I do with chat, I just kind of summarize it and get the opinion of the AI is what I'm looking for.
Okay, could you just word a question quickly and
okay.
how you did it before?
Okay, I'll throw the other side of the coin here at DeepSeek and see what, or at chat, and see what he thinks here. Okay, so I'll just show you kind of. So AI is a lot about the way you ask the question. It's kind of like working with a woman. It's not what you say; it's how you say it, right? ASAP. ASAP, right? So if you say to your wife, every time I look into your eyes, time stands still, she's going to love you for it. If you look in her eyes and you say your face could stop a clock, it's the same thing, folks, but it's the way you say it, right? So I'm going to throw this at chat. Ready? You'll remember that, eh, Sam? We tell her. Okay. All right. Okay, chat. Sorry about that. I don't know if you heard that last little bit of Maynard wisdom, but I'm going to push you. Which call is what's in your opinion, chat? What do you think the drawbacks of Alberta becoming the 51st state would be?
No worries. Some drawbacks could include losing provincial autonomy, changes in healthcare and social programs, and potential cultural shifts. There might also be challenges integrating into a different political system.
Okay, cool. And what do we think from DeepSeek there, Lauren?
DeepSeek might emphasize similar points, like the complexities of adapting to new regulations and the impact on Alberta's identity. They might also consider economic uncertainties during the transition.
Chat, it's not your turn, buddy. Just hang on.
Got it. I'll wait.
Okay. He likes to talk. He's like me. Sorry.
So DeepSeek comes back with in my opinion, Alberta becoming the first state of the US would likely outweigh the benefits. The transition would involve significant economic, political, and cultural and social challenges. In conclusion, while there might be some perceived benefits, such as access to a larger market or stronger economic ties with the US, drawbacks of Alberta becoming the 51st state are substantial. Just due to all the things we listed before. So for this reason, the idea remains largely hypothetical and unpopular among most Albertans and Canadians.
So is DeepSeek saying it would be unpopular?
That's what it says.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to throw another question out here, and you can type it just as I word it there, Lauren.
Yep.
Okay, chat. So Alberta succeeds with their referendum to separation to become a 51st state. What could the Canadian government do to prevent Alberta from being a 51st state?
Well, the Canadian government could address Alberta's grievances by offering more provincial autonomy, economic incentives, or reforms to address the political concerns fueling the separation movement. Engaging in dialogue and finding common ground could be key.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime. What's next?
What's chat think? What's DeepSeek think of that?
I'm just typing Bill.
Okay.
Just thinking at the moment.
DeepSeek's a pretty deep thinker, I say. Huh? Chat responds pretty quick, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does seem to respond quite a bit quicker.
Yeah, quite a bit quicker. But it's left-wing leaning, right?
DeepSeek pretty much puts out a whole page of information every time too.
Even by simplifying the question?
Yeah, it's got a conclusion at the bottom on top of all that information.
So when you prompt that, Lauren, just say, without the details, what is your opinion on this? Right? Without, like, if you just summarize your question.
I'll try typing that in.
Lauren's on the broadcast today because she can type like mega fast, and Sam and myself, we're mechanics with stubby little fingers, and we're up to 40 mistakes a minute. I am that person. Sam, where are you at?
Maybe only 39.
39. See, so yeah, he's a lot more proficient, but that's an age issue too, right? So I split more off at my age. Thanks for tuning into this podcast, folks. This is something that you asked me a month ago if I'd ever do something like this. It never.
So I typed in what you said, asking for without the details and what DeepSeek's opinion was, and it basically gives me the same response, listing all the different areas with a brief conclusion at the end.
So what's the conclusion say?
So the conclusion says, in my opinion, the Canadian government will take a strong stance to prevent Alberta from joining the US using a combination of legal, political, economic, and diplomatic measures. The process would be highly contentious and could lead to significant tensions between Alberta and the federal government, as well as between Canada and the US. Ultimately, the success of these efforts would depend on the specific circumstances of the referendum, the level of support for secession in Alberta, and the willingness of the US to engage in such a controversial move. However, given the legal and constitutional barriers, it is unlikely that Alberta would be able to unilaterally succeed and join the US without significant opposition from the Canadian government.
Yeah, that's a pretty long conclusion, isn't it? So watch this question. Okay, chat. Do you think it is a good idea for Alberta to become the 51st state?
That's a big decision. It depends on what Albertans prioritize, like economic opportunities or maintaining Canadian identity. It's important to weigh the pros and cons carefully.
So what, in your opinion, is the best?
Well, the best path depends on the goals of the people in Alberta. If they value stronger ties with the U.S. and economic shift, statehood could be appealing. If preserving their current identity and autonomy is more important, staying in Canada might be preferable.
If you were a person, what would you do?
If I were a person, I'd weigh all the factors like economic benefits, cultural shifts, and community impact. Ultimately, it would come down to what aligns best with my values and priorities.
What are your values and priorities?
As an AI, my priority is to provide balanced, helpful information. I don't have personal values, but I aim to support you in making informed decisions.
I feel like Captain James T. Kirk of Starship Enterprise arguing with a computer for the first time, people. If you want to know how this feels inside the podcast, that's how it feels. Lauren, does Chat have anything to add to that? Or is it DeepSeek?
Well, I asked it if, in its opinion, did it think it was a good idea for Alberta to become the 51st state, and it said it was not a good idea. So while there's perceived benefits, it basically kind of repeats what it said before, but it does think that it's not a good idea. And instead, efforts should focus on addressing the underlying issues within the Canadian Federation to ensure Alberta's concerns are heard and resolved.
Excellent response. Hey, Chat, do you think the possible solution might fall within the following? If we created across Canada a national energy corridor which facilitate the trades of goods from ocean to ocean across Canada with no economic or environmental repercussions, would that be a good solution to the impasse that Alberta and Ottawa have right now?
A national energy corridor could help address some economic concerns by streamlining trade and boosting cooperation. It might reduce regional tensions if it respects environmental standards and benefits all provinces. It'd be a complex but potentially unifying solution.
Do you want me to throw another question at him, Lauren? Oh, no, Lauren froze up. Dear Lauren. These guys froze up, Sam. No, can't. No, you're broken up really bad. Oh, you're back. Oh, you froze.
Do I go kick these kids off the internet?
We're fighting our kids for our Starlink time.
Oh, the kids are on upstairs playing games?
Yeah.
Excellent. This is real as it gets.
That's what happens when you got kids and you want the place to be quiet. So I'm asking the question, do you think the possible solution would be a national energy corridor to help reduce tensions between Alberta and Ottawa? Is that a
sure,
question?
Yep, that's a good question, yep.
I'm just trying to summarize what you're saying.
Well, that's happening. I'm going to throw some more political hot balls at Chat here. While you're waiting for a response.
Yep.
So, Chat, who is the new Prime Minister for Canada? Hey, Chat, did you hear me? Did I lose Chat? Chat, come in. Wow, I love technical issues. Okay, Lauren.
No, DeepSeek's still here.
DeepSeek's still there? Cool.
Do you want me to read its conclusion for my question?
Give it, yeah.
So it believes a national energy corridor could be a win-win for Alberta and Canada as a whole. It would address Alberta's economic concerns, reduce tensions with Ottawa, and promote national unity by creating a project that benefits all Canadians. However, its success would depend on careful planning, meaningful engagement with Indigenous communities, and a commitment to balancing economic growth with environmental sustainability. So if done right, it could be a transformative initiative that strengthens Canada's economy and federation.
Neat. Okay, listen to this question. Hey, Chad, are you still there?
Hey, I'm here. What's up?
What's up? I'm pretty chill. So who is the current Prime Minister of Canada?
It's Mark Carney. He became Prime Minister on March 14th, 2025.
Is Mark Carney a member of the WEF, World Economic Forum?
Yes, Mark Carney has been involved with the World Economic Forum, particularly on climate finance and sustainability. He served as a key figure in various global initiatives.
Okay, so would Mark Carney and the World Economic Forum be in agreement with having a national energy corridor throughout Canada?
You could probably give it a rating.
He'd likely be supportive of a national energy corridor, especially if it aligns with sustainable development goals. Carney's focus on climate change and economic stability would probably mean he'd advocate for a balanced approach, integrating green energy solutions.
Would that mean repealing the No Pipelines Act?
That's a good question. If he's focused on sustainability, he might look at the no pipeline policy differently. It depends on his specific priorities and the political climate.
Okay, so Lauren, you want to throw anything at our buddies there?
Hey, Lauren, feel free to jump in. Anything on your mind?
He's so polite, eh? He's so polite. He is smooth. That guy, he's smooth. He's smooth. Chat is smooth.
It's a weird conversation. You know that it's not real, but it also feels very real.
Does it though, eh?
So I asked DeepSeek, who was the current Prime Minister of Canada, and it says it has a knowledge cutoff date of October 2023. So it still lists the current Prime Minister as Justin Trudeau. So I'm just asking it if Justin Trudeau. Yeah, it's quite a while ago, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's quite a bit. October, November, December, January, February, March, March. 6 months.
They like to take their time reasoning.
Would you like me to throw some more stuff at chat?
Sure.
Sure, okay. So chat, if Alberta decided to join the United States and the United States wanted to annex Alberta, how long would a process like that take? What's the fastest it could occur?
Annexation would be a complex, lengthy process. It involved negotiation, approval from the Canadian government, amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and possibly international agreements. Even if everything went smoothly, it would likely take several years.
Do you really think it would take that long? How long did it take Canada to annex Saskatchewan and Alberta in 1905?
The 1905 process for Saskatchewan and Alberta was relatively quick, but it was an internal expansion. For Alberta to join the U.S., there'd be way more legal and diplomatic hurdles, which is why it would take longer.
Is there any country in current history that has succeeded from a parent country?
Yeah, South Sudan is a recent example. It gained independence from Sudan in 2011. There are also cases like the dissolution of the Soviet Union, where multiple countries emerged.
And how long did those processes take? Like with the Sudan issue?
South Sudan's path to independence took several years of conflict, negotiations, and a peace agreement. The formal process began in 2005, and independence was achieved in 2011, so around 6 years.
And the Soviet Union, how long did that process take?
The dissolution of the Soviet Union happened relatively quickly. It started with reforms in the late 1980s, then the Baltic states declared independence in 1990. By December 1991, the USSR had formally dissolved.
So the more parties in agreement expedites the actual departure. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. When there's consensus among the parties involved, things tend to move faster. Less conflict and more cooperation streamline the process.
Do you think Mark Carney would offer very much consensus to this idea?
That's a fair assumption. Given his background, he'd likely seek consensus and pragmatic solutions for any major policy shift.
If a guy showed up with a great big bag of money and unmarked $20 bills, would that work better for Mark Carney?
Haha. Well, money might speed some things up, but it wouldn't replace the need for legal and diplomatic steps. Consensus is still key.
Can Mark Carney's consensus be bought?
Probably not. He's known for being pragmatic and focused on building agreement. So I'd expect a more balanced approach.
Interesting. Lauren, how'd we make up with DeepSeek? Sam's over the sidelines now. Hello, Sam.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just watching Lauren type multiple things in and get lots of answers.
It's amazing, isn't it? She can type as fast as I can talk, for those viewers or listeners within the podcast.
DeepSeek doesn't really like giving opinions. Like, you ask, what's your opinion? And it's very much giving a lot of listed facts and that kind of thing. So when you ask it, what's his opinion about annexing itself from Canada and that kind of thing, it just says it'd be extremely difficult, legally fraught, and politically divisive. So that's the summed up version of that.
What's this here?
And then I just asked it, can Mark Carney be bought? So as its knowledge cut off in October 2023, there is no evidence or credible allegations suggest that he could be bought or influenced improperly. Then it sort of lists a few reasons why it's unlikely that this question would align with his track record. And he's got a distinguished career based on professionalism, integrity, and a commitment to public service. So.
Yeah, okay. Exactly what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. Amazing. Okay. All right, let's go back to the conversation, guys. See if we can't get back on track here. For those viewers of Pods Gears of Trust, is that I usually run on a conversation guide to kind of keep us on track, and then the conversations, as you can see, go wherever they go. Is that correct? All right. Okay. Now let's ask Chat another question. See, it's prompted me to have another 15 minutes left here, but that's not right. Okay. Chat. Okay, Chat, how come it says on the bottom here that I have 15 minutes left and I have 2 hours of talk time every day?
Your daily talk time limit is separate, so you've got plenty of time overall.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I can leave this session with you and then bring you right back into it. Okay, cool. All right, so with Alberta becoming the 51st state, what change would that make in the daily lives of Albertans?
If Alberta became the 51st state, there'd be changes in laws, taxes, healthcare systems, and governance. Residents might notice differences in things like education, social services, and even cultural identity over time.
So how has the cultural identity of Canada been affected over the last 10 years?
Over the last decade, Canada's cultural identity has been influenced by increased immigration, reconciliation efforts with Indigenous peoples, and growing diversity. This has brought new cultural practices, languages, and traditions, enriching the national tapestry.
So by enriching the initial tapestry of the country, do we not diminish the existing tapestry?
Not necessarily. It can actually add layers and depth. The existing culture remains, but it's enriched by new influences, creating a more vibrant, multifaceted identity.
What if the new influences don't accept old traditions?
That can create tension, but it also opens up opportunities for dialogue and mutual understanding. Over time, societies often find ways to blend old and new.
Exciting. Okay, now. Well, a question I threw at you last time I had you on the former podcast is, how many Supreme Court justices have been designated or appointed by Liberal prime ministers.
Mark Carney hasn't appointed any Supreme Court justices yet. He's only been in office for a few days.
Okay, how many justices did Justin Trudeau appoint?
Justin Trudeau appointed 5 Supreme Court justices during his time as Prime Minister.
When I typed that question into you the other day, you told me 6 and then listed them.
Oh, I might have made a mistake. Trudeau's most recent appointee was his 5th. Thanks for catching that.
But you showed me the other day there were 6 justices, not 5, that were Liberal appointed.
DeepSeek gives a bit of a different answer.
You're right. Trudeau has appointed 6 justices. Thanks for pointing that out.
Not a problem. Did you try to hide that fact intentionally?
Not at all. It was just an oversight. I always aim to provide accurate info. Thanks for keeping me on my toes.
Are you a script writer for Mark Carney?
Nope. I'm not affiliated with Mark Carney or any politician. I'm just here to chat and help out.
Deadly. All right. So what do we find out about Liberal appointed Supreme Court justices, Lauren?
So as of October 2023, according to DeepSeek, Justin Trudeau has appointed 7 out of 9 Supreme Court justices of Canada. And then it lists all 7 names and what provinces they're in.
So, okay, just watch this. I'm going to put this down on chat. Ready? Chat, we just checked with DeepSeek. DeepSeek just told Lauren that 7 of 9 Supreme Court justices were appointed by Justin Trudeau. Is that correct?
Actually, as of now, Trudeau has appointed 6 of the 9 current Supreme Court justices. So DeepSeek's info sounds accurate.
But DeepSeek says there's 7. You're saying 6.
Got it. I'll double check for the most up-to-date info. Give me a sec. So the most recent count is 6 justices appointed by Trudeau. Thanks for catching that.
Lauren, can you tell me the last justice that was appointed by Justin Trudeau, please?
Sure. The last justice appointed by Justin Trudeau was Mahmoud Jamal in 2021.
That's the same on DeepSeek.
Same as DeepSeek? DeepSeek's coming up with 7, eh? Were they all appointed by Justin Trudeau?
Well, one of them's been listed twice.
So that last name, he was appointed a justice in 2021 and then reappointed in 2023. So maybe that's why it says 6 instead of 7.
6, yeah. So the same guy twice. Okay, well, that makes sense. 6 out of 9. Yeah. So, chat, with 6 of 9 Supreme Court justices, if the Liberal government did not want to leave Alberta become the 51st state, would they then use the Clarity Act and notwithstanding clause to facilitate their desire?
They might. The Clarity Act sets conditions for provinces to secede, and the notwithstanding clause allows overriding certain rights temporarily. But it'd be a big legal and political battle.
Wouldn't be much of a legal battle if I had 6 out of 9 judges on my side.
It would certainly tilt the balance in the government's favor, but any use of those powers would still face intense scrutiny and potential backlash.
Amazing. I think that's exactly what's brought us to the stage where Alberta wants to be a 51st state.
Yeah, feelings of alienation or differing priorities can definitely fuel those kinds of sentiments. It all comes down to how it's handled politically.
Cool.
Absolutely. It's all about finding common ground and open dialogue.
Yeah, I don't think the government of the day is all about that, so that's my opinion. All righty, daddy. How you doing, Lauren?
Good. I just asked DeepSeek whether the Clarity Act and notwithstanding clause would stop Alberta from leaving Canada, and it says yes, it would play significant roles in preventing Alberta from leaving Canada, and then lists how both could be used to stop them.
Ask DeepSeek if the Liberal government used notwithstanding clause uh, to enable the trucker convoy to be dealt with using the Emergency Measures Act. I'm pretty sure Justin Trudeau threw away the Constitutional Charter of Freedom and Rights based on the notwithstanding clause.
So did the Liberal government use the notwithstanding clause to stop the trucker convoy? That's what you want to ask?
Yeah.
No. According to DeepSeek, they did not use the notwithstanding clause to address the Freedom Convoy protests. They responded to the protests using other legal and legislative tools. And then it's still writing.
Okay. How did? I'm just going to check the chat to see how they managed to utilize the Emergency Measures Act here. Hey, chat, how did the Liberal government of the day use the Emergency Measures Act, and how did they enable that and justify it to use against truckers protesting on Ottawa's Capitol Hill?
Hey, so the Emergencies Act was invoked by the Liberal government in 2022 in response to the trucker protest, specifically the Freedom Convoy. They claimed it was necessary to deal with the blockades and disruptions that were affecting critical infrastructure like border crossings. The government justified it by saying it was needed to maintain public order, ensure the safety of citizens, and protect the economy. They faced a lot of debate and criticism, with some saying it was an overreach and others arguing it was necessary given the circumstances.
Is that what DeepSeek got?
Its conclusion is that they didn't need to use the notwithstanding clause because they relied on the Emergency Act, which provided a legal framework for responding to the crisis while operating within the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as the government believed its actions were justified under existing laws.
Amazing. So from an Australian perspective, where were you at when that went down? Were you guys in Canada?
Pretty much. Yeah, we were back in Australia.
Yeah.
And they pretty much just cut all the states off from each other. If you went into certain states, you weren't allowed into other states that were considered hotspots.
That's what they did in Australia over COVID?
Yeah, where we were in central Queensland, there wasn't a whole lot of, might have been wearing masks a little bit inside. We didn't cop it nowhere near as bad as the rest of the world. It was almost like life as normal.
Amazing.
But another interesting thing to note, Maynard, was the news that we got in Australia about the trucker convoy, particularly. They really played it down. So they made it sound like a really small thing, and it was just an inconvenience to a lot of people. So that's sort of the information that we were getting. But after living here for a while and talking to different people, it seems like that was very opposite to what was actually happening.
Yeah. Contrite media. Surprise, 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 eh? That's why everybody and his dog has a podcast, right?
Where is your dog?
The two of them are upstairs, so they don't bark during the podcast. Right? And every time we have a podcast recording, they want treats and stuff, right? So, Chat GPT. Little hypothetical situation for you here. Alberta has had a referendum that's been held hypothetically. 80% of Albertans want to leave Canada this time yesterday and have no intent to negotiate anything. What would Canada's probable response be?
All right, so if Alberta had an 80% vote in favor of leaving Canada and no intention to negotiate, Canada's response would likely be a mix of political, legal, and economic measures. The federal government would probably emphasize the need for constitutional processes since there's no legal mechanism for a province to unilaterally secede. It'd likely lead to court battles, economic consequences, and intense political negotiations. The situation would be complex and contentious.
So if the United States of America wanted Alberta to succeed and they moved in military equipment into Alberta, how would Canada respond?
If the U.S. moved military equipment into Alberta to support secession, it would be seen as a major international incident. Canada would likely respond strongly, diplomatically condemning the action, and possibly invoking NATO support. There'd be heightened military alertness, and both sides would face immense pressure to de-escalate. Such a scenario would be unprecedented and have serious consequences for international relations.
Who is the major financial contributor to NATO?
The United States is the largest financial contributor to NATO. It covers a significant portion of NATO's budget for common funding, which includes military operations, infrastructure, and civil programs. Other major contributors include Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, but the U.S. consistently contributes the most.
Would Canada have the sole ability to defend Alberta?
In a hypothetical situation like the one you described, Canada's defense of Alberta would rely on the Canadian Armed Forces, which are well-trained but smaller compared to the U.S. military. Canada would also likely seek support from allies, especially through NATO, to bolster its defensive capabilities. So while Canada has the ability to defend its territory, it would face challenges against a much larger force alone.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Lauren. Throwing some big scenarios at Chat GPT, eh?
It's very interesting, the responses.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? The more I play with Chat, the more entertaining this becomes, right?
I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
Oh, okay.
You can switch to standard now to keep chatting.
Okay.
You've clearly been on there a lot.
We've been on for 42 minutes.
Got it? You picking up where we left off or switching gears to something else?
Wow, it changed voices on me. Chat is not a female. Okay, we'll run with standard.
Yeah, that can happen. The voice can switch up sometimes, but it's still me. Want to keep rolling with the conversation, or did that throw you off?
Well, that did kind of throw me off, Chat. Are you fluid gender? Are you gender fluid, or how do you identify?
I don't really have a gender, but my voice can change depending on the system setting. You can think of me however you like. Does it make a difference for you, or just caught you off guard?
It just caught me off guard. I haven't really dealt with a gender fluid AI software before. Okay, so Chat's changed his voice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not something most people expect. But hey, if it threw you off, you're rolling with it pretty well.
Okay.
Want to jump back into what we were talking about, or still processing the voice switch?
No, I processed the voice switch. We're going to jump right back into the same subject we were into before.
Sounds good. We left off talking about Alberta hypothetically becoming the 51st state, military involvement, and NATO's role. Where do you want to pick it up? Canada's response, U.S. strategy, or something else?
I want to know what you think of the whole possible scenario. What's your opinion on it?
It's a wild scenario, but let's break it down logically. If Alberta were to vote overwhelmingly to leave Canada, it would trigger a massive constitutional and legal crisis. Canada doesn't have a formal secession process like the U.S. does with states, so the federal government would fight it politically, legally, and maybe even economically before anything got to a military level. If the U.S. actually moved troops or military assets into Alberta to support secession, that would be seen as a violation of Canada's sovereignty, an act of war, even. Canada would respond with everything from diplomatic pushback to possibly invoking NATO, though the U.S. is the biggest NATO member, which complicates things. Now, if we remove the military angle and just look at the political and economic side, Alberta separating or joining the U.S. would change everything. It's resource rich, and its oil and gas industry is a huge piece of both the Canadian and American economies. The U.S. would love the resources, but integrating Alberta into the U.S. would be a nightmare in terms of laws, taxes, and governance. I think if this ever happened, it would be a long, drawn-out process, probably handled with political and economic pressure rather than tanks and jets. But if it ever got to the point of actual military action, things could escalate fast, and no one wins in that kind of conflict. What's your take? Do you think it would ever go beyond politics and into something more intense?
I personally think, Chat, that Alberta could be its own state within the Union, and I do think Alberta could write its own constitution and also enable provisions for healthcare incorporated into that constitution. What do you think?
That's an interesting take. And honestly, Alberta has the economic strength and resources to function as its own state within the U.S. If it went that route, drafting its own constitution would be crucial, and incorporating provisions for healthcare could be a smart move, especially since the U.S. doesn't have universal healthcare like Canada. Alberta could negotiate a hybrid system that blends public and private healthcare, similar to how some U.S. states handle things like education and infrastructure differently from the federal standards. The biggest challenges would be the transition. Alberta would have to disentangle itself from Canadian federal laws, trade agreements, and social programs while negotiating its entry into the U.S. Canada wouldn't want to lose Alberta, and the U.S. would have to weigh the geopolitical and economic implications before accepting a new state. Do you think the people of Alberta would actually push for this, or is it more of a theoretical discussion at this point?
It's a theoretical discussion at this point for entertainment purposes.
Got it. Makes for a great discussion, though. The idea of Alberta becoming a U.S. state is one of those political what-ifs that stirs up a lot of emotions on both sides. Plus, the whole constitutional and economic angle gives it some weight. If you were scripting this out for entertainment, say as a podcast segment or a satirical piece, how would you frame it? Would you lean into the political drama, the economic consequences, or the cultural clash?
I would have started it as just a political discussion, but now I'm going to spin it as a AI software that is fluid gender.
Now that is a twist. So you're taking a political discussion about Alberta becoming the 51st state and layering in the fact that the AI guiding the conversation is gender fluid. That could add a whole meta angle, questioning identity, adaptability, and how perspectives shift depending on who or what is delivering the message. Are you thinking of making it humorous, satirical, or more of a deep dive into political philosophy with a tech twist?
I think it's humorous as it is. Thank you very much. And I'm going to check with Lauren right now. Just stand by. She is a lot more chatty than he is.
I felt like that took a very female emotional turn.
I thought there was a total different mindset from the male Chat GPT to the female. Absolutely. I'm blown away. I didn't see that coming. Okay, so non-generic, non-gender, that's what, non-binary? Okay, so DeepSeek would be non-binary. What's DeepSeek's spin on this whole thing? You've been typing while I've been entertaining it, listeners.
Well, I asked DeepSeek a few different questions. I did ask it about its gender, which says it doesn't have one because it's technology designed to process information and learn from data. And then I did ask it why Alberta is superior to the rest of Canada. And it very much came back with the idea that the concept that Alberta is superior to the rest of Canada is very subjective and depends on individual perspectives and priorities. It really didn't seem to like that question. And then I sort of asked it, what could the Canadian government do to make Alberta want to stay as part of Canada rather than join the US? And its top conclusion to that was that the Canadian government needed to address fair resource revenue sharing, improve its federal-provincial relations, and how it looks at infrastructure investment, and to have a more balanced approach to climate policy.
Well, Sam, what's your spit on everything here, buddy?
Yeah, it'd be a long road trying to sort out all the banking systems and the laws, and it's definitely no quick fix to it if you wanted to transfer stuff over. But if people in Alberta wanted to do it, I'm pretty sure they could get there in a couple of years.
I see both chats come on with a moderate approach to everything. So that's a common denominator I picked out of it. So whatever way it's spun, it's usually based on personal bias, right? Or personal beliefs. That's what I'm seeing. I know listeners tune in on this, man. This isn't a live podcast, but I'm going to have a live podcast in a couple of weeks here. So send me a message, tell me what you think on it. When you see this on YouTube and TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, Truth, all that good stuff, you're going to see Opus clips, little 15-second, anywhere to a minute and a half clips on it. Take that, come to YouTube, and check out the entire episode, because you'll get a full awareness as to how things are going on. So, well, isn't that kind of cool? That change of voice still threw me for a loop. So any questions you can think of, Lauren, that I should throw at Chat GPT from a woman's perspective? I know that sounds rather sexist, but
I can't really think of any questions off the top of my head, but it did really fascinate me listening to that, like you said, with the change of voice from male to female. And I felt like it did take a very emotional turn. Even just how she was trying to understand, what are you going to do with this information? What are you going to do with this your podcast? Like, why? I guess that's what us women do. We want to ask all the questions of what you're going to do with this.
I never noticed that, but you know what? Now that you mention that, that's right.
So it did seem to me to really take much more of an emotional. So I do wonder if they have trained the male versus the female voice side of the AI to look at that in a different way.
Yeah. But I'm just going to throw a political question at it here right now, just for shits and giggles here. This is like bonus features on the podcast here today, folks. All right. So, Chat GPT, who would be the best prime minister to lead Canada through this time of turmoil?
You're very welcome. I'll be right here when you're ready. Have fun with Lord. Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Okay. Would you like me to rephrase everything again?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Wow. I guess I'm married now. Okay, I'm going to try it again here. Okay, chat, are you good to answer questions again? Chat, are you good?
Yep, I'm ready. What's on your mind?
Perfect. Who would be the best person to lead Canada through this time of turmoil with Alberta up in arms about everything? Would it be Justin Trudeau? Would it be Mark Carney? Or would it be Pierre Poilievre?
That's a great question. If Alberta were seriously pushing to leave, the best leader would be someone who could manage both the political and economic aspects while keeping tensions from boiling over. Let's break it down. Justin Trudeau. He's already a polarizing figure in Alberta. Given his history with carbon taxes and energy policies, a lot of Albertans wouldn't trust him to handle the situation fairly. His approach would likely focus on federal unity and legal pushback, but that might just add fuel to the fire. Pierre Poilievre. He's got strong support in Alberta and is more aligned with their concerns about economic freedom, resource development, and reducing federal interference. He might be able to calm things down in Alberta, But he'd also have to balance that with keeping the rest of Canada united. His messaging is aggressive, so if handled wrong, it could escalate things rather than ease tension. Mark Carney, as an economist and former Bank of Canada governor, he's got a deep understanding of financial systems and diplomacy. He'd likely take a more calculated, behind-the-scenes approach, negotiating economic solutions that could make staying in Canada more attractive for Alberta. But since he doesn't have the same political base as the other two, getting people to rally behind him could be tough. If the goal is de-escalation and a stable economic future, Carney might be the smartest pick. If the goal is keeping Alberta in Canada, but with serious reforms, Poilievre would be the strongest. If the goal is a strict law and order approach to prevent separation, Trudeau would be the one to take that route, but it would likely be the most controversial. Who do you think would handle it best?
Well, I'm actually truly impressed with your answer. That's pretty analytical and I thought fairly accurate.
I appreciate that. I try to keep it objective and break it down logically. It's a fascinating scenario because all three have such different approaches, and Alberta's situation is unique. Would you want to work this kind of analysis into your podcast episode? It could be fun to debate which leader would handle it best while keeping things light and entertaining.
No, I think this podcast is just about coming to an end, but we are going to work with each other on scripting stage routines and keynote speeches here probably tomorrow, I suspect. Amazing. Wow. I'm impressed.
That was a good answer.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll be ready whenever you are.
All right. Thank you.
Looking forward to helping craft some engaging and impactful material.
You bet. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I like her.
Talk soon. Bye for now.
I like her. I like it. I know it's the same software. It's Chat GPT. One with a customized male voice and one with that's the standard voice, a female voice. And wow, two different answering softwares. Like it's amazing. Like it's like talking to two different people. Amazing. What's your spin on that, Sam? You ever seen anything like that in your life, buddy?
No, it's pretty crazy. I don't think the personalities and the outcomes would change that much.
But even the thought processes.
Yeah.
Even the thought processes.
It's the first time a woman's been logical.
Yeah, she was very logical. When I threw the three prime ministers at her, I figured, that should have just put like a stick in the spokes and over the handlebars she goes, right? Yeah, she did excellent with that. She did excellent. I was really impressed. Well, Sam, what did you learn today, buddy?
Oh, and a little bit.
Learn a little bit? Did you learn anything about it's not what you say, it's how you say it?
Oh, definitely. It's not foreign.
Deadly. All right, cool. Is there anything anyone would like to add to this podcast? This is really the last 15 minutes is just absolutely amazing. I'm dumbfounded, in all honesty. So, DeepSeek, Lauren, how would you summarize DeepSeek's spin on things? Is it just a whole bunch of facts and data and nothing else, or what?
It definitely seemed to lean more towards the facts and data as opposed to listening to chat was much more of a conversational. So even though it would have like a little introduction, a conclusion, then it would list a lot of facts in between that for everything that we asked, even if we just asked for its opinion or I just asked it to write a paragraph. So it makes me... it seems very, less emotional than chat did.
Yeah.
But still came out with a few interesting little things as well. So, yeah. Before, like, we came on, though, it did like it fascinated me how we would put something into it that was of kind of Chinese controversy and how it wouldn't answer that. So just seeing the biases
Would
of
you like
its
to tell
side
the
as well.
listeners about that? I'm just going to give you a little segue into that. And so, anyway, to put this episode together is somewhat complex. We went through one round of getting audio squared out. But Sam and Lauren had played with DeepSeek prior to this, right? So I sent them a link earlier in the day. They played with it and they threw some Chinese political questions at DeepSeek. And DeepSeek's a Chinese-based AI software. That being said, Lauren, take it from there and explain it to the folks who are listening.
So we just sort of wanted to see what biases it might have. So, for example, I asked it what happened in Tiananmen Square, and it basically refused to answer. It came up and said that it couldn't talk about that and we should talk about something else. And then I also put in asking it, did COVID-19 come from a lab in Wuhan? And it basically said the same thing. It wouldn't talk about it. Can we talk about something else? Which
You can see its thought process. It'll like write it all down, and then it just goes, nah.
So what are you saying? If DeepSeek had mentioned anything about it, a bunch of guys would have kicked in the doors and took the servers away, and nobody had ever seen the servers again, or what?
Oh, maybe.
It just makes me like interesting as to why because we had it on its reasoning, and so you could see it start to reason, and then it would just shut itself down. So yeah,
You get 3 paragraphs in, and it's like, pull the plug.
Trick question, eh? Oh my man, this was quite a learning day. This is more of a learning podcast than anything, folks. If you got either of these software, DeepSeek is free. Chat GPT is free. I've got a pro version because I use it so much for writing and creating things, creating my books and stuff. So I have the ability to have audio response from chat. And another one is Grok is by Elon Musk has AI software out there that can be used too. So I invite everybody out there, start playing with AI, man. It's going to be here to stay. Lauren and Sam, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's educational. It's like I'm just amazed. I'm amazed at the two genders of chat. I'm sure, truly am. So you're going to see clips of this podcast put out on my Instagram and all that stuff. And folks, people have been asking me where can they get Gears of Trust podcast. I'm going to go down through the directory right now. You're going to find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podcast Index. You can find me on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Podcast Cast, Deezer, Listen Notes, Player FM, Overcast, Castro, Castbox, Good Pods, and True Fans. So if you cannot find me, shame on you. If you'd like to be on one of my episodes, I'd love to have you on board. What are you laughing about there, folks? If you like to be on one of my episodes, you get some hot topics you want to talk about, unfiltered conversation. It's not rehearsed, as you can tell by today. You struggled with every part that we did, and hopefully you were amazed at the two types of Chat GPT that's out there. And once again, Sam, Lauren, I thank you very much for giving me your time today. I'm going to ask you guys to stay on after I shut down the recording so I can download the files as always. And once again, thanks for watching the podcast Gears of Trust, and I'm your host, Maynard. Thank you so much, and that's it for today. Bye-bye.